Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday, October 11th, 2024. Time for another show. Mental note to myself. Yes, okay, now I've given the date. I don't know. I've panicked mid-show for some reason the last couple of days thinking, oh my God, I didn't tell people what the date was, but they already knew. But you know how it goes. If we ever use the show for rerun purposes, you have, 30 seconds to find out whether that's what's happening. And otherwise, you just got to sit there and wait and say, wait, well, I thought Trump already said he wanted to murder everybody. I don't understand. Yeah, that was 4 years ago. We're rerunning the show. Okay, so hey, how's it going? Did you catch the Aurora Borealis show last night? If you did, well, to hell with you, because I didn't, and I'm jealous of that experience. We would very much like to see this and have planned trips, or, fantasized about, well, we'll go to, pick it, Canada, I don't know, Finland, Norway, Sweden, someplace fun to see the Northern Lights one of these days, but then you can catch it in your own backyard. Every once in a while. Apparently the sun has these cycles. CNN, and every so often it has extraordinary activity. And the Northern Lights were viewable much further south than usual. So across the northern tier of the country, it was very easy to see, and you got a spectacular show. Across the northern tier of that other country, which is across our northern tier, Canada, they got to see, I don't know, they say it more frequently. Maybe it's not such a big deal. I don't know. It still looks great. But let's see, I saw pictures from everywhere, including pictures from right here in Northern Virginia, which baffled me because I didn't see anything. And as it turns out, yesterday's show, and I don't know if this is always the case when you're talking about the far southern extremes for a display like that, it came on really more or less just after sunset. I don't know, an hour after sunset. It was like 7 o'clock in the evening. People were claiming, I don't know, the pictures that I saw were barely distinguishable from looking at, at a giant softball field complex from over a hill. This glow. There was a little bit of color to it, but I would have taken it. But it happened at about like 7:20, 7:30, and then it came on strong, and then it vanished pretty quickly, just dissipated. Other places for hours on end, so you tell me, what did you get to see? My brother Mark sent some great pictures from New Jersey, and that was cool, and I don't know, it was a lot going on, and I didn't get to see it, and I was very upset. Anyway, we'll try again. Sun, try it again, although I understand it's a big solar storm in order to do one of those things, and I guess the bigger they are, the better the chance of seeing an Aurora Borealis, but also the better the chance of disruption of satellite and radio signals. So it's a bit of a trade-off, I guess. But to hell with it. Don't try to signal me by satellite while I'm looking at the sky. And I won't be mad because I won't feel like I missed anything. All right, let's see. What other fun things have we to discuss today? I don't know. I tried not to look too much at the news because it usually sucks. Elon Musk doing things, and we can spend some time yammering about what he's up to these days. I guess there must have been some sort of big trade show type announcement in which he, promised more fantastical crap in 2 weeks, 6 months, a year or two, what have you. Most of which never materializes. That's just one of his fabulous habits, I guess. This time we were going to get robots and robot taxis. Robot taxis, I think, has been on the table for Elon Musk for about 10 years as it is. But this time he's totally serious, and it's really, really super duper going to happen. The robots were, I thought, dumb looking. And also the pitch for them was a little unusual. I was kind of taken aback by the sorts of tasks that he was excited to announce. I don't know whether he was at the show or he just announced it on Twitter from wherever he is, campaigning for Trump somewhere. That's actually what he's spending most of his time on, and we got a story about that. But apparently he was very excited that everybody would be happy to get one of these robots because this robot could watch your kids or walk your dog, which, while they're chores, to be sure, and I've certainly heard people complain about them at the time they had to perform those chores, it was just sort of revealing of the Elon Musk character, right? A guy who doesn't do much for his kids, but yet has a billion of them. He thinks, once they're born, my job is done. The point is to populate the earth with Elon Musk progeny. He actually kind of really does believe that. And, but yeah, taking care of them, not so much. So no wonder he wants a robot to watch them and take care of them. And walking your dog, a chore to be sure, but most people say that's actually a huge pleasure for them in a way, even though sometimes it happens in the middle of the night and they can't wait to get back inside. But generally speaking, it figures that someone like Elon Musk would be excited about assigning those jobs to a robot. All right, well, I didn't see the introduction of it, so I don't care that much, and whatever. Now I'm prepared to take you on through the rest of the day, and we'll see if we can work in a couple of the pre-recorded segments that are here, plus a couple other story suggestions. But I saw this morning being circulated at a lower level, the under tier, I guess, of Elon Musk coverage, but should be the more important of the two kinds of coverage. But, going to have a product, so that's very exciting. This one from the New York Times, Musk is going all in to elect Trump. You remember way back when, like probably a couple of weeks ago, maybe less, when it was still the position of the newspapers that you just can't pigeonhole Elon Musk politically. It's just so hard to tell what his politics are. Sure, he's endorsing Republican politician after Republican politician, but he's doing it from a tech libertarian point of view. And anyway, now he's just running around. He's filled the Laura Loomer space on the Trump plane and is just traveling around. Musk is going all in to elect Trump. They tell us in the subheader that Elon Musk is planting himself in Pennsylvania, head first, I hope, has brought his brain trust to help, oh boy, and may even knock on doors himself. I hope he knocks on those doors with his brain, and his brain trust's brain as well, and he does it really, really hard. Okay, who's reporting this? Well, all the usual suspects, I guess. I don't know. Or some of these are very unusual suspects, and some of them are repeat offenders. Theodore Schleifer, I'm going to guess is his pronunciation. Maggie Haberman, of course. Ryan Mack, and Jonathan Swan. So what have they produced for us here? In the final weeks of the presidential campaign, the richest man in the world. Oh, boy. I mean, I guess he is. But does that mean, like, what's it? The Sultan of Brunei is no longer the richest man in the world? I thought that was the case for many years. And no one knew who the hell he was, but it was easy to believe because he was a sultan, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, in the final weeks of the presidential campaign, the richest man in the world has involved himself in the U.S. election in a manner unparalleled in modern history. Elon Musk, seen over the weekend jumping for joy. That's true. I think we all saw that one. Jumping for joy alongside former President Donald J. Trump. All right. Refrain from comment on that and keep going. At a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, remember he was jumping for joy at the I Got Shot Here rally, is now talking to the Republican candidate multiple times a week. What could go wrong? He has effectively moved his base of operations to Pennsylvania. I can't believe he's working remotely. Everyone knows you have to be back in the office in order to be effective. The place that he has recently told confidants that he believes is the linchpin to Mr. Trump's reelection. So he's gone there to try to destroy the prospects by being, let's add a couple extra heaping teaspoons of weird on top of our campaign. I know that's sort of faded out of the picture, and it's a complaint people have. They were very excited and were really enjoying watching the Harris-Walz campaign riff on the "they're just weird" thing, and it really gave a freewheeling spirit to the whole campaign, which is now much more buttoned down. But they're trying to bring in some others who will join us in line to cast those ballots, and you need some normies. All right, he has effectively moved his base of operations to Pennsylvania. He thinks that's the linchpin to Trump's reelection. You know, there's a theory for that. He has relentlessly promoted Mr. Trump's candidacy to his 201 million followers on Twitter. They call it X, of course. They indulge him. Pardon me, just a second. Wow, all right, just couldn't kick that little tickle in the throat there. He has relentlessly promoted Trump's candidacy on, you know what, the social platform formerly known as Twitter, that he bought for $44 billion and is used to spread conspiracy theories about the Democratic Party and to insult its candidate, Vice President Kamala Harris. I guess that was the point of it. Above all, he is personally steering the actions of a super PAC that he has funded with tens of millions of dollars to turn out the vote for Mr. Trump, not just in Pennsylvania, but across the country. He has even proposed taking a campaign bus tour across Pennsylvania and knocking on doors himself, in part to see how his money is being used. That's an interesting knock on the doors. Hi, I'm Elon Musk. How's my money being used? What are you talking about? No, he wants to watch the GOTV operation, I guess. I don't know how he'll be able to evaluate it. I don't know if he has any basis for evaluating it, but if it's, pleasing to him, he'll be happy and give more money. And so everyone will run around and kowtow to him in hopes that he'll cut a bigger check. Taken together, a clear picture has emerged of Mr. Musk's battle plan, really, as he directs his efforts to elect Mr. Trump with the same frenetic energy and exacting demands that he has honed at his companies SpaceX, Tesla, and, of course, X, formerly known as Twitter. His companies, the one he just threw money at, and it became his company. But I think that was how he acquired Tesla as well, actually. As early as February, Mr. Musk was speaking apocalyptically in private about what he considered the crucial need to defeat President Biden. But even as he was meeting with advisors in Austin, Texas, remember when I'm moving my base of operations to Austin, Texas. No, Pennsylvania. Wherever, Mars. Anyway, as he was meeting with advisors in Austin, Texas in April to plot his super PAC, Mr. Musk sounded as if he'd considered Mr. Trump merely the lesser of two evils. He told friends in the spring that he wasn't sure he even wanted to explicitly endorse Mr. Trump. But I guess something changed. In these days, in private conversations, Mr. Musk is obsessive, almost manic, one might say, off his rocker, and so completely crazy that only the vast amounts of money that he controls is what's keeping us from dismissing him as a raving lunatic. Now he's an eccentric, of course. These days in private conversations, he's obsessive, almost manic, about the stakes of the election and the need for Mr. Trump to win. He praises Mr. Trump's courage under fire. He endorsed him on the night of the assassination attempt in Butler and talks about how funny he is. One person who spoke recently to Mr. Musk recalled him saying, without any hint of irony, "I love Trump." Okay, Mr. Musk's frenzied engagement reflects his view of this moment in American history on Twitter. He has warned in dire terms about the effect of progressive policies and censorship. He has claimed without basis that Democrats are trying to fill the country with undocumented immigrants, a great replacement theorist, I guess, who would reward them with permanent power, warning that the 2024 race could be the last free election in America. But Trump has already warned that that was the case even if he wins. If it may be impossible to capture the financial value of all the support Mr. Musk is providing to Mr. Trump. And that's important because ordinarily you're supposed to report all of the financial value that someone is providing to Mr. Trump. But if it's so vast that it can't even be captured, well, we tried, couldn't capture it, and whatever happens, happens. I mean, the best outcome, of course, is Trump loses anyway and all that money is burned. Which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, and I'm certainly going to be working for it. But in the meantime, we're supposed to get disclosure about how much someone like Musk is spending to try to buy the government for himself. And they'll just say, oh, it's beyond figuring because, he's doing it in such unorthodox ways. But money is money. You can always count money, and you can assign a value to it. But yeah, sometimes where it's just publicity that you gain. Yeah, sure. I guess it's hard to put a number on it, but we can certainly total up the amount of money that gets burned along the way. Anyway, this is in part because his role on Twitter, where he amplifies so much of the former president's message. Mr. Trump has privately used grand and unverified terms to describe what Mr. Musk is donating to the super PAC, telling one associate recently that the figure is $500 million. And maybe it is. He wouldn't miss it. That's certainly true. But it's a fertile ground for Trump to lie and exaggerate about it with no possibility of fact-checking. But friends and colleagues say Mr. Musk is adopting the same strategy that he used during other crises he has considered existential. So I guess he thinks everything's existential crisis. Maybe he's off his rocker. Just as Mr. Musk worked late into the night as his companies teetered on the verge of catastrophe, tinkering with the rocket designs at SpaceX as though he knew what he was doing, sleeping on a couch in the Tesla factory as though that helped, or making staff cuts at Twitter. Wow, that was real rough. Mr. Musk has deemed this an all-hands-on-deck moment. And so, just as he recruited friends, family, and trusted lieutenants to Twitter after he bought the company, Mr. Musk has done the same at America PAC, which he founded to help Mr. Trump. Most recently, Mr. Musk added Steve Davis, a former SpaceX engineer, why not, sure, and the head of his tunneling company, to the group, with Mr. Davis reprising a sidekick role that he played after Mr. Musk's takeover of Twitter, which is actually also a huge problem. One of the reasons that they can't calculate the value of everything is that he doesn't follow I don't follow the traditional rules of business. I hire a guy at one company, and when I buy other companies, I make him work at all those other companies too, which is not really a thing. But, all right. Ensconced in a war room in Pittsburgh with a team of lawyers, public relations professionals, canvassing experts, and longtime friends, Mr. Musk is trying to apply strategies and entrepreneurial lessons from his businesses, as if he had learned any, to a grinded-out political mission with just weeks to go until Election Day. This article is based on interviews with 17 people familiar with Mr. Musk's thinking, if there is any, and operations as Election Day approaches. So, I mean, once again, he just sort of thinks, well, I'm a super genius and I have a ton of money. So I'm the world's, either the world's leading expert in this already or can quickly become the world's leading expert in it just by sheer force of will. Rockets, cars, tunnels, social media, presidential elections, nuclear weapons. I know very much about the nuclear. I can learn it all that I need to know in about an hour. No wonder they're endorsing one another here. All right. I'm not sure there's a precedent in modern history for how Musk has inserted himself into the presidential race, said Benjamin Soskis, a historian of the ultra-rich. Wow. I didn't even know there were some. The relationship between Mr. Trump and Mr. Musk has evolved over time. Mr. Musk, who once privately called Mr. Trump a stone-cold loser, possesses in abundance the things Mr. Trump most values: wealth, fame, and a massive platform. Mr. Musk initially supported Ron DeSantis of Florida for president and suggested that Trump should, quote, sail into the sunset. Or, he should have said to SpaceX should launch him into the sun. That would have been a better way of putting it. Mr. Trump replied that Mr. Musk begged on his knees for government subsidies. Still, Mr. Trump has remained fascinated by Mr. Musk. America PAC declined to comment, and the Trump team declined to provide comment for this story. Musk did not return a call for request for comment. And on into the rest of the body of the story here. Secret support at first. That's the next section. The idea for the super PAC was born out of 2 exclusive dinners. After Mr. DeSantis flamed out of the Republican primary, Mr. Musk began to tell friends he wanted to find a way to support Mr. Trump secretly. Born out of 2 exclusive dinners. How did you come up with the idea of taking a whole bunch of your money and spending it on a presidential campaign? Well, let me tell you, there were 2 exclusive dinners. The idea came from everybody else having that idea and using it in the past, and that's actually the way things work. Where did you come up with the idea of lowering your diaphragm such that air rushed into your lungs and extracting oxygen through the capillaries there and distributing it throughout your body using the circulatory system? Well, you see, one day I was just staring at the sun during an eclipse looking for inspiration, and it hit me. Of course, using all your money for a presidential campaign can do that, can do a thing. Well, all right. One of the dinners earlier this year was apparently with a group of Trump-friendly billionaires. They're all Trump-friendly, including Nelson Peltz and John Paulson. Musk voiced an earnest, if naive, belief in the way that politics should work. And why not throw $500 million at it to make it work that way? He dismissed the power of television advertising and spoke sweepingly of an organic movement to elect Mr. Trump, with supporters persuading others to join the cause. 2 voters by 2 voters. That's how Mr. Trump would win, he said. A guy with a social media platform thought that. Okay. In April, Mr. Musk arranged for a dinner to be held at the Los Angeles home of the venture capitalist David Sacks. I guess he picked up the phone and said, "David, host a dinner at your home." That's how he arranged for it to happen. There, Mr. Musk and a phalanx of some of the world's wealthiest people, including Rupert Murdoch, former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, and one-time Trump supporter Peter Thiel, said that 10 by 10 voters was how Mr. Trump would win. Oh, okay. It's not 2 by 2. It's 10 by 10. Good thing we had this dinner. Good dinner. Good talk. Musk told about a dozen dinner companions that supporting Mr. Trump would be politically safe if they did it in large numbers, and so it was important for the business people to organize their peers. Trump has made clear that he appreciates the help, promising to appoint Musk to oversee a government efficiency team if he's reelected. At a rally in Reading, Pennsylvania on Wednesday night, Trump appeared preoccupied with Musk, what do you know, telling stories about his talks with Mr. Musk and 3 unrelated tangents and celebrating the dark MAGA hat that some attendees said they had bought because Mr. Musk wore it in Butler. And why not? That'll make you rich. The relation... It's the opposite. You're giving. I bet I'll become rich by giving my money to a guy who already has too much. Sure, fine, that works. The relationship has proved significant in other ways. After a reporter's publication of hacked Trump campaign information last month, the campaign connected with X, I guess sometimes I'll have to slip and use X for that, to prevent the circulation of links to the material on the platform. Remember Mr. Free Speech here. And according to 2 people with knowledge of the events, X eventually blocked links to the material and suspended the reporter's account. Good old free speech and totally staying out of manipulating things for the election. It's one of the big dangers, of course, of a lunatic's ownership of pretty much anything, but certainly a social media platform. 1 million voters is the next section here. At the core of Musk's project is America PAC. We already know that. You told us. An organization that the Trump campaign is relying on for significant help and knocking on doors in battleground states and encouraging 800,000 to 1 million voters to cast ballots for the former president. I mean, that's the mission statement. Go ahead and print it as that's what we're working on. I mean, it is what they're working on. It's just, I don't know whether they have any ability to do that. Why not say 10 million voters? Why not? Sure. By the way, there's another story sitting here in pocket about the GOTV operation. And of course, I think in the end, if he loses and goes away anyway, and I mean, I guess the odds of that are pretty slim. The losing, fine, but the going away, I don't know about. I guess they'll probably do some sort of postmortem and tell us how badly they effed this GOTV thing up after all. They did, after all, hand it off to incompetents who know nothing about what they're doing, but have enormous confidence in themselves. One, a billionaire, Musk. The other, just, given his talent set, too fabulously wealthy himself, Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA, who, if we get to the story, you'll figure it all out. Now, back to America PAC here. The group has spent about $80 million to help Trump, according to federal records. At least they reported that much. Primarily on its canvassing program, Musk's advisors have told donors that the group has about 2,500 organizers in the field, and the group has effectively acquired the Wisconsin assets of another group, Turning Points USA. I didn't realize that they had made that plural, Turning Points now. Is that right? Taking on about 200 new canvassers in the state. Some canvassers during training have been shown Mr. Musk's social media posts about the group as a way to encourage them. Yeah, and that sounds like a direction that came right from him. Show them my tweets, then they'll be inspired. That'll really work. Okay. The scale of Musk's personal financial commitment will not be made public until the middle of the month. Initially, Musk and his friends in the group had spoken of a budget of totaling from about $140 million to $180 million, almost all of it from Musk himself. Good. The group has told other prospective donors in recent weeks that it is fully funded. The Trump campaign is conducting something of an experiment by outsourcing portions of its voter contact operations to America PAC and other groups. That is possible because of a new federal election guidance that allows political campaigns to coordinate their activities more closely with outside organizations. You recall that coordination used to be a no-no, but what the hell, go for it now. The campaign signed a data sharing agreement with America PAC. Oh boy, giving your data to Elon Musk. And several others. And it works closely with them to assess which voters are most important to speak at their homes, Okay. I get you, and I'm sure they did a bang-up job on that one, too. We'll see. Some of the people in Mr. Trump's orbit are uncertain about how effective outside efforts will be. Some donors to the super PAC have groused that Mr. Musk is relying on the same team that formed the core of Mr. DeSantis's advisors, you see, when he attempted a similar effort in the Republican primaries to no avail. So that's good news. Veterans of past campaigns argue that canvassing operations generally take months or even years to become effective machines. There is little precedent for successfully standing up a group of this scale just months before a presidential election. And it isn't really months, plural, it's a month. And turmoil has plagued America PAC at times, too, and I'll be pleased to bring you more details about that after this break.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's see if we can't continue down this path that the New York Times folks have laid out for us, trying to get to the bottom of, well, what is Elon Musk really doing with all of his money and his time in the closing month of this election? Let's see. So we had read that veterans of past campaigns were upset because, a number of things. One, there's no real precedent for just creating a grassroots GOTV operation effectively and making it effective just a month or two before the general election. A month, really. It's not or two. But I suppose he could have started on a month ago. But these things usually take several years and several cycles to really hone their game and become effective. Also, the complaint was, well, all you did was you took the operation that flopped for DeSantis, swapped the name and put Trump on it, put $180 million into it, that's something, and said, this time it's going to succeed. We're going to be advised by all the people who advised the losing campaign of DeSantis, but this time with more money. We're going to, I guess, pay them more and burn some money paying some other people to knock on doors and say the things that these genius advisors have come up with. But, they have a different candidate, so I suppose it's possible that it could, quote unquote, work. to whatever extent these things ever work. But we did find out also that turmoil had plagued America PAC at times, and I guess still does, as Mr. Musk has repeatedly jettisoned advisors and vendors that were supplying canvassers and replaced them, at one point stranding hundreds of paid door knockers across the country. I'm sure they appreciated that, and they probably all bought Teslas and went home. A senior Trump campaign official who was granted anonymity to discuss internal views about America PAC said that the team was not relying on the group, that is in quotes there, relying on the group, but did consider it a, quote, key partner along with many other outside groups as added firepower. Next section here, spreading misinformation, and I guess that's one of the real concerns here. If America PAC is the most ambitious and costly manifestation of Musk's support for Trump, nowhere has his cheerleading been more evident than on Twitter. Since publicly endorsing the former president in July, he has posted at least 109 times about Trump and the election. And while he has said in the past that the platform should be politically neutral, F that, is basically what he's come to the conclusion of. He has used it to advance election misinformation and the baseless claim that Democrats are engaging in, quote, deliberate voter importation, unquote, and, quote, fast-tracking, unquote, immigrants to citizenship to gain control over the electorate. Well, that's not his only conspiracy theory that he's promoting there, including the conspiracy theories about the manipulation of FEMA or the theft of monies or relief supplies, which, of course, falls under the category of every Republican accusation being a confession. I just happened to notice that he was saying that FEMA was essentially waylaying supplies, taking them, confiscating them from people who and relief organizations that had them and socking them away in warehouses and declaring them to be their own resources, which is eerily reminiscent of how Jared Kushner directed COVID relief. But hey, who am I to repeat myself 100 times over and over again and try to inform you, right? Anyway, one post, back to the article here, that with that claim, the Great Replacement claims, this month has garnered nearly 34 million views, according to X's own metrics, which, you know, they may be making up because apparently we've heard these reports before that they have been forced to exaggerate the numbers for engagement on Elon's posts. He asks, how many people saw it? 10 million. 10 million? That's not enough. I meant 20 million. Well, it's getting better. 30 million. Now we're talking. And I guess if you want to trust the metrics, go ahead. And there's no harm in it, I guess. It's still garbage. Anyway, this all underscores the attention that Musk, the owner of the platform's most followed account, can command, and that too. Something he has reportedly manipulated along the way. Unless Trump wins and we get rid of the mountain of smothering regulations, parenthetically, that have nothing to do with safety, exclamation point, humanity will never reach Mars, Mr. Musk wrote this month in a post that has gained nearly 18 million views. This is existential. Of course it isn't. It's probably the most existential part of it is don't let Elon Musk drive us to Mars. We'll all be killed. And also, just another, like I say, a heaping teaspoon of weird on top of it all. Unless we did, we'll never get rid of all the regulations, and then we'll never reach Mars. One, I don't know if you were right about that, and two, who cares, honestly. Anyway. Article's almost over. Let's get to the end of it here. Online, Mr. Musk has painted a dark picture of what would happen if Mr. Trump lost, a circumstance that could hurt Musk personally. Oh, that would be terrific. In an interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, he acknowledged trashing Kamala nonstop and being all in for Mr. Trump. If Mr. Trump loses, he joked, how long do you think my prison sentence is going to be? And the answer is, I don't think you'll survive to reach a prison cell. Would be a fantastic outcome. But of course, in reality, we will study the reality of what you just did judiciously while you create your own new reality. And, the rich tend to get away with it when it comes to this stuff. All right, let's see. I parked a couple other things in here that now I think would be helpful to add to the roundup. and there are several. And let's see, what I have to open some of them and see which ones got put away and which ones didn't. Yeah, okay. So, one I just saw, which was interesting, and it was, let's see, who's tweeting here? It originates with Eric Rauchway, Rauchway, perhaps you follow him on Blue Sky, and sending around, let's see, is this, this is an article in The Atlantic, which I will not have access to, but apparently making this point. It's Charlie Warzel's piece entitled, "I'm running out of ways to explain how bad this is. What's happening in America today is something darker than a misinformation crisis," is how he puts it. And I guess he gets quoted in this post. Elon Musk, claimed, I don't know, FEMA was, quote, actively blocking shipments and seizing goods and services locally and locking them away to state they are their own. It's very real, I don't know if it is, and scary how much they have taken control to stop people helping. That post has been viewed more than 40 million times. Again, every accusation is a confession, and this is exactly what Jared Kushner was accused of doing with COVID, necessary personal protective equipment, I guess the testing gear as well in the early stages when we just had those big laboratory tests and everybody had to line up for the swabs. No home tests yet. During that period is when Trump took one of those very much in demand machines and shipped it to Vladimir Putin. It's pretty crazy. And what can I tell you? So there's that article out there as well. So if you have a subscription to The Atlantic, you can take a look at it. But I mentioned that there are others here. And I spotted this one also being circulated on Blue Sky. Justin Hendricks circulating this one, commenting on, I think, the New York Times piece, and then pointing to his own from about a little under a month ago in Just Security. Hendricks writing with Dean Jackson on this one under the title of Musk, X, and Trump 2024. Where are the legal and ethical boundaries? And the answer is, we might be able to pinpoint the legal boundaries, but the ethical boundaries, sorry, can't help you. We know where they are. It just doesn't matter with respect, and neither do the legal boundaries for that matter with respect to these guys. There's an editor's note here that says it's an article as part of a new series from leading experts with practical solutions to democratic backsliding, polarization, and political violence. So those would be things you would want to keep an eye on as well. And here's the body of the article. Elon Musk, the world's richest person, stated again, is actively using X, formerly Twitter. X is just such a dumb name. I really just resent having to say it. The social media platform that he bought in 2022 to promote his far-right political interests. Victoria Elliott at Wired writes that Musk has made the platform, quote, his own personal bullhorn, unquote. Tech journalist Casey Newton says that X is now just a political project. Even before his endorsement of former President Donald Trump in July, Musk had already changed X in substantial ways that favor MAGA politics and personalities. He restored accounts of far-right figures such as white nationalist Nick Fuentes and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, relaxed content moderation policies, erased them entirely in many cases, and disposed of much of the company's trust and safety and election integrity teams. But after the endorsement, Musk's efforts on behalf of the Trump campaign appeared to surge. He launched a political action committee dedicated to Trump's re-election. He hosted a live stream with the former president, whom Musk coaxed back onto the platform after he was previously banned for incitement to violence after the January 6th attacks at the U.S. Capitol. According to the New York Times, Musk hired a Republican operative with expertise in field organizing, allegedly, to help direct his political activities. And according to Trump, Musk has agreed to head a government efficiency task force that aims to make recommendations for drastic reforms across the entire federal government should Trump win a second term. All the while, Musk continues to promote his preferred brand of politics through posts on his own account, which has close to 200 million followers, and frequently appears in the user's feed as a recommended content, whether they follow him or not. And that's the chief value of it to him. I was just thinking back as I was reading this paragraph to the one in the previous piece in which Trump tells the assembled billionaires at the second of the two dinners that they have safety in numbers, that if all these billionaires, if they all jump in and endorse Trump, then they'll I guess, avoid some of the political backlash. Like, a lot of these guys are business owners, and some of the businesses are already overtly for Trump, like Rupert Murdoch stuff. But I guess they were afraid of, if I have a brand that's politically neutral and I jump in and endorse Trump, people will shy away from or boycott my brand. But I guess he figures if we all jump in, we own so much stuff that it's impossible to boycott all of us effectively. And sometimes that's true. Just sort of wondering whether we'll allow that one to remain true or not, or if there's any way to boycott all of these billionaires all at once. They just own too many things. But we can give it a shot. And every shot you give it is more money in your pocket. So there's that. Okay, while it may be jarring for users and others who hope the platform, Twitter, might not succumb to so completely to the interests of its singular owner. Yeah, too bad about that one. I think we have a sound effect for that one there somewhere. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. All right. Well, no social media platform is truly politically neutral, and it is not a novel circumstance that the singular owner of a platform has extraordinary influence over its operations, policies, and political decisions. But Musk's use of X to try to influence the 2024 U.S. election is the most extreme example to date of a person in his position using a major social media platform for specific political outcome. It is so blatant and outside the norm, it can be considered a class of its own. I guess that harkens back to the Warzel piece. I'm running out of ways to explain how bad this is. I'm running out of excuses for not paying to see this article, except The Atlantic is so hit or miss. They can be so irritating. All right. Back to just security. This unique scenario offers an opportunity to consider the various ways that social media platforms could be used to provide advantages for one political campaign over another, and where the ethical and legal lines might currently be drawn. The exercise may also be useful for ex-staff and board members who should think carefully in advance about the potential legal and public policy questions arising from Musk's politicking, including what actions could trip into possible violations of campaign finance and elections law. And if they've seen the enforcement of campaign finance and election law in the past, they probably won't be particularly worried about that. And we'll just jump right in with 2 feet. Where are the red lines? We are asked in the title of this section. The operators of social media platforms regularly make design, technical, product, and policy decisions that may favor certain parties and their politics. In the past, though, they have typically done so incidentally or to protect themselves from accusations, good faith or otherwise, of political bias. For example, there are many past cases of platforms shielding conservative users from content moderation. However, we are not aware of a clear example in which owners of another major social media platform acted to intentionally boost a specific candidate or party. Musk is different. So his employees may do well to be on the lookout for evidence they are being directed to engage in political manipulation. But not all acts of political manipulation are equal. Some may violate the law, while others are likely legal, even if unethical, and some may not be clearly unethical either. Below, we present possible ways that the various aspects of the platform, its policies, and its advertising products could be used to specifically advance the interests of a candidate for office, if you can think of any. In order to assess where legal and ethical lines might be drawn, we asked experts on privacy, campaign finance, and election law about different forms of potential manipulation of such a social media platform, and based on their insights, we sorted these possibilities into 3 categories: those that are potentially illegal, those which fall into a gray zone, and those which raise serious policy questions but few legal risks for X and Musk. First up, those potentially illegal uses. Platform operators have broad First Amendment rights to determine which speech they allow, how they moderate content, and with whom they do business. Many of the decisions are also shielded from liability by Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And here I would just throw out stories we haven't quite yet paid enough attention to. One, falls under the flooding the zone category, why we didn't get to it, but you have likely heard already. Trump is, this week he wants CBS's broadcast licenses revoked because they did a 60 Minutes. And then they said that they invited Trump on there, but Trump backed out and wouldn't do it. So for that, they should lose their license because they're lying and saying terrible things about me. He actually wants to use the power of the federal government to revoke CBS's license. And I guess it's a mining claim. They're going to sell it to the highest bidder elsewhere. I don't think it really works like that, but who knows? It doesn't matter. The point is, of course, threatening free speech, First Amendment protections, even though he put it in his Bible and everything. But that goes along with the story we read the other day about Ron DeSantis doing that on the state level, threatening television stations that air advertisements paid for and, the advertising time bought by proponents of the ballot initiative to secure abortion rights as part of the constitutional rights in Florida. And if you are airing it, you are liable somehow to the state. And they're going to shut you down there as well because of all the freedom and stuff. You know how it is with these college kids and their campus free speech. They're clamping down on they're making it into a Soviet left-wing Marxist totalitarian government. So we'll do the same because reasons, and ours will be good and theirs will be bad. Anyway, so platform operators have broad First Amendment rights unless, of course, you hire a Supreme Court that says that they don't, but that you do. Platform operators, though, are restricted by Federal Election Commission regulations, sometimes, which stipulate that certain actions might be considered in-kind campaign contributions. And, of course, actions taken by corporations or individuals that encourage violence or interfere with electoral processes are also subject to laws, occasionally, governing voting rights and incitement, unless you're all pardoned, of course. Or courts just let you go. Even so, the bar for proving a violation of these laws is often high. For FEC violations, in particular, it is typically necessary to show with concrete evidence that an actor coordinated directly with a campaign. And even if you do, if the Republican commissioners on the FEC won't vote against you, you skate, I would add. Though this high bar might benefit X in its current incarnation, it also protected Twitter from conservative critics in the past. For instance, an August 2021 decision by the FEC found the company did not make material contributions to the Biden campaign by briefly blocking links to a New York Post article about Hunter Biden's laptop. There are additional considerations as well. For example, political action committees, PACs, of course, and other non-campaign entities are not bound by the same rules as campaigns. FEC rules also carry a press exemption, which might apply to X. The FEC is politically deadlocked, making enforcement through it even more unlikely, and the Justice Department appears focused on less controversial conduct. Violations can be difficult to detect given the opacity of social media platforms and their internal operations. Legal proceedings, FEC or otherwise, can take months or years. By the time a case is resolved, the election could be long past. But even if laws and regulations go unenforced, potential violations are still a matter of public concern. Were alleged violations to come to light, they could inspire future congressional hearings, investigations, or legislation. They might also lead to pressure from advertisers or others on Musk to change. And while enforcement may take time, a well-founded criminal indictment or the opening of a formal investigation of a company could also help propel actors toward legal compliance. What follows are three areas, another three, that may raise legal concerns. Finally, here we go. 1, advertising and monetization. Consider if Musk decided to offer discounted advertising rates to a favored campaign or PAC, or multiple. It's plural here in the writing. Or if he implemented stricter approval processes for disfavored political actors. Indeed, Musk's live-streamed interview with former President Trump With this, X is already under scrutiny, as some advisors have wondered if the Trump campaign paid to promote the event, and if so, how much. X also heavily promoted the interview with a designated hashtag in its trending section for users. Neither X nor the Trump campaign has provided the public with the details of that arrangement. According to Adav Noti, executive director of the Nonpartisan Campaign Legal Center, charging differential rates for campaign advertising would be illegal. Incitement to violence is the second of the three. Another scenario to contemplate is Musk, through his account or platform support for other accounts, encouraging political violence during or after the election. He could, for example, encourage militia members to stake out polling places, encourage violent demonstrations, or invoke ideas of a civil war, as he recently did in the United Kingdom. In terms of technical tools, one should consider scenarios in which Musk could manipulate the content recommendation algorithm or interfere in internal enforcement against similar content. Of these possibilities, posts by Musk directly inciting violence or issuing what Noti called legally cognizable threats are the most likely to violate the law, but the bar for proving incitement to violence in court can be quite high, which is why you throw them in an alligator pit instead. But that would be fascistic. We don't love that. The alligators love it, but they're only a small portion of the listeners to this show. Interference, number 3, interference with election processes or voting rights. Another scenario to consider is Musk making statements or using Twitter to amplify statements violating state and federal election laws about voting rights and election interference. He has already publicly embraced conspiracy theories about fraud, election fraud by, for example, claiming that non-citizens are preparing to vote in the upcoming election. Building on these conspiracy theories, Musk could encourage protests and election, quote, observers, including armed militia members, to monitor polling places. Alternatively, Musk could propagate conspiracies that encourage rogue poll workers and other potential saboteurs to take actions that threaten the election's integrity. And as I'm reading it, I'm thinking of a more concrete manifestation of it, or maybe after the fact, where Musk does this stuff. Go to the polls, bring your guns, make sure nobody that looks like they're not a citizen votes, and rough them up if you see them. Don't let them even enter the polls, because if they do, they might have legal protections there. So kill them outside, right? And you say, oh my God, look at what this is. Look what's happening in this country. And meanwhile, of course, Trump says, it's not me. I don't control this guy. I don't know. But that's why coordination like that is illegal between, whether it's coordinated or not would be illegal normally, but how long will it take to do anything about it, for one thing? And for another, if Trump were to say, if you were to put on Twitter that these militias should go, they would probably listen to you. Oh, really? Okay, I'll try it. And then he goes and does it. That's like illegal coordination between super PACs and the candidate. But that isn't necessarily what they had in mind. Usually it's just the content of advertising. But why don't you tell everybody to go kill one another? And then I didn't do it. Don't look at me. That would be illegal coordination too. But as we learned earlier, we're okay with the illegal coordination these days. Who knows? We probably didn't have the murder in mind, but we probably should have thought of it by now. Anyway, where were we with this? Right. Alternatively, Musk could propagate conspiracies that encourage rogue poll workers and other potential saboteurs to take actions that threaten the election's integrity. These scenarios might violate both recent and long-standing civil rights laws, such as Section 11 of the Voting Rights Act, as though we still had a Voting Rights Act, or the KKK Act, but precedent for their enforcement is evolving. For example, the pending case of United States versus Mackey concerns a man charged under the Enforcement Act of 1870 with using his social media presence. Imagine them thinking about that in 1870. Using his social media presence to spread false information about voting procedures in a way intended to suppress voter turnout, right? Think about Elon Musk using all the blue check accounts to say, in order to avoid confusion and long lines at the polls, Tuesday is the day that Trump voters vote, and Wednesday is the day that Harris voters vote. So don't forget, and that also is illegal. But do it on Twitter, and a certain number of people, as dumb as it is, will believe it. That case Mackie, maybe an exception in terms of social media being the mechanism, while the existing laws need to be updated, not just for the artificial intelligence age, but the internet age in general. As a case in point, prosecutors charged the man allegedly responsible for generating a deep fake call of President Joe Biden in New Hampshire under a law that specifically applies to robocalls. A social media post containing the same type of deep fake might not have even triggered, there we are, prosecution under the same law because social media firms are not regulated in the same way as telecoms. See, for example, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act of 1991, codified at 47 U.S. Code Section 227, and its definition of automatic telephone dialing systems. But see also the federal law prohibiting fraudulent misrepresentation of campaign authorities at 52 U.S. Code Section 30124, and analysis of its application to AI and deep fakes. In other words, we're still not sure we have a law that actually prohibits the most likely usage of social media platforms to manipulate the elections coming this November. Or actually, this month is when you should be looking for that. Legally questionable and ethically dubious. That's category 2 of the possible actions. Other actions Musk might take fall into that legal gray zone in which an argument could be made for illegality, but existing precedent is unclear. Though ethically dubious, these acts might not violate existing law or might violate it in ways that are not enforceable. Some might even argue, perhaps cynically, that these kinds of manipulations are common for both sides of the aisle in contemporary politics. It is numbered 4 here, but it's almost time for us to take our top of the hour break. We'll see what we can fit in. First is recommendation algorithms and the visibility of content. We're all being shadow banned, right? One potential scenario to consider is if Musk chose to alter how X delivers content to users in order to promote certain accounts or narratives over others. For example, consider if he were to use the recommendation algorithms to show content promoting one candidate to more users, or conversely to show supportive messages about the candidate's opponent to fewer users. He could also manipulate features such as trending topics or hashtags to bury content unfavorable to a candidate, boost content friendly to their campaign messaging, or to do the opposite for the candidate's opponent. The CLC's note, he said, it is possible a judge could regard manipulation of recommendation algorithms as a material contribution to a campaign, but that it is at minimum a gray area. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. All right, we're going to make our way through this. This is a long article, but it's well worth it just to envision some of these things. And by the way, what struck me over the break here, I keep thinking during the breaks, regardless, that I guess this too, a mirror image, I guess, in a way. And I guess that also falls under every Republican accusation is a confession. The Republican accusation is that Democrats are somehow manipulating black box electronic voting or vote tabulation with algorithms, software that basically says doesn't matter what the actual votes are that are cast. Either that electronic voting machines will switch votes that are cast for Trump to votes for, in 2020 they said Biden, this time they'll say Harris. And I guess it's everyone can imagine a computer glitch that somehow affects one machine, several machines, all machines, or the sensitivity of the touch screen voting, right? And you go to touch the button for Trump, but you think the machine is switching your vote, but actually you have very little control of your limbs. Let's say, particularly, some of the elderly voters that have difficulty with things like that. And I could see where sometimes, the screen isn't very large or the design of the screen is such that the candidates' names are close together and you think you're pressing Trump, but it lights up for Harris. And I guess if you're not paying attention, I guess your vote could go through that way. But if you are paying attention, you see it, what do you mentally do? How do you mentally process this? And some people will process it as, oh, I've pressed the wrong area of the screen. Let me try again. And go to press the Trump button much more deliberately. And then, sometimes I guess you'll see it then switch the vote. Sometimes not. I suppose it's possible. And now it could be, you just have fat fingers, or you just don't have particularly good motor control, or maybe the screen is a little wacky after having been used 100,000 times and it loses its sensitivity. All of these things are possible, but how will you process it in your mind? User error, equipment error, or deliberate plot by Joe Biden himself to steal the election and blah, 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 yeah. Well, if it's the latter, and you then immediately run to social media and say, this happened to me, and it's an obvious plot, and it must be happening to all the machines, you have no basis for thinking that, but people will freak out nonetheless. But all of those accusations are made, and even if that isn't the issue, then it could still be, I use paper ballots. Well, sure, but the ballots are tabulated by a machine, and you know nothing about how the machine works, and that's why people like Tina Peters have to break into those machines to steal the hard drives to prove to the world that there's an algorithm that says no matter how many votes you feed in there for Trump, we're still going to say that the other guy won. Well, how do you prove that? Well, there's many ways of proving it. The certifications of the machines, but those things are they're certified by political actors. They've been elected to the county clerk jobs, and what if we got ourselves elected to the county clerk jobs? We could prevent that from happening. But not only that, we could approve software that does the opposite for us, and it would be okay and fair for us to do it because they're doing it. We're just doing what they're doing, and, they're convinced that Democrats are doing all of these things, which is what makes every Republican accusation into a confession. They fantasize that these things are going on, and they strike back in exactly the way they think they're being struck at, and then you arrest them for it and catalog the offenses. This is a similar thing in that the algorithms that run places like Twitter are, in fact, also black boxes and aren't actually susceptible or required to submit for certification that they actually work the way they're supposed to work. But I understand the fear, right? Especially if voting machine companies are claiming that their algorithms are proprietary and you can't examine them. Then it just makes you more paranoid, if you've already started out that way, that votes are just being counted with a predetermined outcome. Well, on the other side of it, I guess manipulating people before they ever vote, what if social media was in fact being manipulated that way? I don't know that it is, but I can tell you that Republicans previously thought that it was, and you know what happens when they get hold of that kind of misinformation. If they come to believe that Democrats were manipulating social media to shadow ban Republicans, to ratchet down the visibility of and engagement with their contributions to a platform like Twitter, well, what's going to happen when they finally acquire control of Twitter is that they will do that in reverse, thus proving once again that every Republican accusation is a confession and justified by saying the Democrats already did it. We're just trying to play catch up here. And anyway, I just find it interesting that there's this parallel in between. And they feel certain that this is true. And once again, just like it was with the voter fraud accusations, when they have extracted so-called evidence, as they did with the quote-unquote Twitter files that Trump then provided to friendly journalists, they too, they made fools of themselves, pointing at it and saying, look at how conclusive this information is, when in fact, when examined either in courts or dispassionately elsewhere in other journalistic forums, they said, there's just no there. You guys have whipped yourselves up into a frenzy and you see a monster behind every corner. Just like you thought was happening with the voter fraud, this is also not the case with pre-Musk Twitter. But, of course, post-Musk Twitter gets to say, well, even if it wasn't true before, we can make it true now because we knew it was true the first time. You say we didn't prove it, but we knew it was true anyway, so we're going to do it. And we're just playing tit for tat, which is, of course, bad in other situations, really all situations, except when Republicans are, I guess, titting for the tat. I don't know what, of things that they are fairly certain to absolutely positive that Democrats did first. Anyway, back to our article here, because we left off, I think we got one sentence of this paragraph that we didn't sneak in under the wire here. This was the recommendation algorithms and visibility of content argument, where the CLC's Noti, remember him, said that it was possible that a judge could regard manipulation of recommendation algorithms as a material contribution to a campaign, but it is at minimum a gray area. See, it's also possible that courts would find such activity to be protected speech. Wouldn't that be something? Is it Elon Musk's First Amendment right to manipulate the algorithm of something he owns privately this way, or not? I don't know for sure, and it depends which one of the 9 Supreme Court justices you ask. One of the 6 placed there to give Republicans a positive outcome, or one of the 3 that Republicans are pretty sure were placed there to give Democrats their preferred outcome, so it's okay because they did it first. This problem manifests itself in many places. Next section here, number 5, I guess 4, 5, and 6 will be under heading number 2. We're doing this one just like the Jack Smith filing. There's an outline here. We're under the heading of legally questionable and ethically dubious. Category 2 possibilities here. The next one being disinformation and synthetic content. Another scenario is if Musk chose to allow certain types of behavior to go unchecked, and it is alleged that he is doing that right now, such as coordinated disinformation, inauthentic behavior benefiting political allies, or allowing the spread of misleading content that would otherwise violate content policies. He has already shared a video featuring a clone of Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris's voice. There is currently no federal law prohibiting misrepresentations of this sort. It says parenthetically that the federal law prohibiting fraudulent misrepresentation of campaign authority is limited in scope and applies only to conduct perpetrated by a candidate or their agents. So he would just simply claim, Musk isn't. He's certainly not the candidate, and he's not my agent. We just have coordinating dinners, which are now allowed for some reason. Senators Amy Klobuchar and Lisa Murkowski have introduced a bill requiring transparency disclosures on ads with AI-generated content. We've already seen Mike Brown fail to identify it, and then when caught, say, oopsie, I forgot. Okay, I'll put a disclaimer in there now. Even if such a law existed, though, perpetrators may argue that such deep fakes are protected as satire. The Harris video contains such sarcastic messages, it would be hard for a relatively informed voter to believe it was authentic. A number of state laws do exist, but they are new and largely untested. But I guess that would be like trying to prosecute me for pretending I was Donald Trump and saying, please don't vote for me. I don't know. Whatever. You'd have to. I'm tired of trying to make up things that are so outrageous that they might possibly be true, but could obviously be spotted by a what did we say? A relatively informed voter, recognized then as not being authentic. All right. You get the idea, though. There's nothing on the books that can stop them from doing an AI deep fake of Kamala Harris's voice saying something catastrophic. Next up, other forms of support, sort of a catch-all category. Other scenarios to contemplate include if Musk offered other valuable support to a favored political candidate, such as, what does he have in mind? Providing more human resources to assist one campaign in utilizing the platform than their competitor. Providing early access to new features or tools. Using company resources to conduct voter outreach. Or even providing direct monetary support. There are many years of precedent governing corporate contributions, such as get-out-the-vote campaigns, which must be nonpartisan. If it could be proven that X intended to benefit one campaign over another, such activity might be illegal. Other forms of support have proven controversial but do not appear to be illegal unless they are offered on preferential terms. This was the subject of debate following revelations about the embedding of Facebook and Google staffers in the 2016 Trump campaign. Now, I guess Section 3 here, probably legal, whether ethically right or wrong. we have several subcategories here. Finally, a number of federal laws or lack thereof. Under a number of federal laws or the lack thereof, there are a number of ways that Musk could use X to tip the electoral scale that are almost certainly legal, even if they raise questions or serious ethical questions. And these include, first, interfering in content moderation. Musk could influence the visibility of certain viewpoints through selective enforcement of content moderation policies. This might include overruling moderation decisions on high-profile posts, including those of leading candidates, or handling certain accounts differently from others, such as political influencers. And I think this is fairly obvious, and they probably go on to discuss it, but in case it's not, these decisions, I guess, are in his hands. He owns Twitter. Suppose he directs the content moderators under penalty of termination to, if Musk has come to believe, Trump is a truth teller and Kamala Harris is a liar and a tyrant and a communist and a deep fake and is whatever level accusations he might choose to level, should he come out of that by saying, content moderation policy on Twitter is we promote truth and we fight against misinformation. And if everything Kamala Harris says by definition is misinformation in Trump's mind, certainly, and in Musk's mind, then it would be okay under existing content moderation rules to say, let's, whether we decide to boost Trump's communications on Twitter or Trump-connected communications on Twitter or not, we can always say, whatever Kamala Harris has to say or any of her surrogates have to say is by definition misinformation and we will suppress it. See, we're just enforcing the existing rules. You're doing it wrong, but I don't know, it was just a mistake. Sorry. Did we get it wrong? Oopsie, my bad. You could do things that way. So let's see where there was. This might include overruling moderation decisions on high-profile posts, including from the candidates, asymmetries in how moderation resources are allocated, as well as policy adjustments that favor one viewpoint over another, could result in favoring certain candidates and parties. Imagine if, for example, the United States were to see another round of protests against police violence, and X were to take a light touch approach toward hate speech and violent incitement by MAGA supporters against protesters. Recent rulings by the Supreme Court make it more likely that this would be considered protected First Amendment expression. And such conduct presumably would also be protected under the Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. Not the hate speech per se, but the decision to leave it unmoderated might be protected First Amendment expression. The hate speech, with this Supreme Court, sure, they might decide that that's protected speech too, but they don't have to in order to permit it to be promoted. Next section, targeting and user data. Manipulative behavior in this domain might include providing privileged access to user data for a preferred candidate or campaign's targeting, unique lead generation, data sharing, including through custom APIs, data collection mechanisms, or even the selective enforcement of privacy policies to advantage or disadvantage parties. As with preferential advertising rates, one could argue this is a material contribution to a campaign. However, legal experts we spoke to said it would be easy for X to argue in court that this was a business decision to help deliver content of interest to its user base. It would take exceptionally compelling evidence to prove that X had coordinated with the Trump campaign to provide a material contribution in violation of FEC rules. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Right? Or, of course, violating what users probably think are their rights under privacy protections for X to either, one, identify people who are conservatives who might, they think, benefit from more exposure to Trump campaign outreach and advertising. Or on the other hand, simply after Trump seizes power, whether with a electoral win or not, and what about all the information they have about the liberal users out there? It's one thing for them to use their database to identify people who would be receptive to Trump's message and deliver it to them. It's another to say, well, these are the people who wouldn't be receptive to Trump's message, and I'm not offering you this list for you to advertise to them outreach-wise to try to persuade them to come over to Trump. I'm simply providing you with a list of potential political opponents that you can take and do whatever you want with from the White House. I have nothing to do with it. I didn't coordinate it. I'm simply fulfilling a data request that your campaign apparatus has made and decided to share it with the White House. And since there's no laws, what the hell? Here you go. Next one up here is, is there another sentence or two in this one? Oh, no, another section. I missed this one. Marketing and messaging channels. Musk could choose to utilize his X's own communications mechanisms, such as emails or in-app notifications, to issue announcements or selectively communicate to certain targeted parties, or Musk might privilege certain accounts, as he appears to have done for himself after firing an engineer because he felt engagement with his account was too low. Craig Holman, an expert on campaign finance issues at the watchdog group Public Citizen, told us this would probably not run afoul of federal election law unless coordination with a campaign could be proven. And then maybe not even then, under new guidance, apparently. Next up, search and AI-generated content and material. Musk could manipulate other platform functions to favor one partisan side over another. Such use functions range from standard search tools to newer generative AI tools, and include automatically generated snippets as well as information in knowledge panels, the boxes that appear when a user searches for people, places, organizations, or other things that are in Google's knowledge graph. Musk's AI chatbot, Grok, has already been criticized for falsely claiming that Harris is ineligible for the ballot in many states, leading 5 secretaries of state to send Musk a letter asking him to implement better guardrails. But this is an emerging area with little federal regulation at present. Next section up here, one step back up on the outline here, there were the 3 major headings. Now, that was all pre-election. After the election, there could be more. The above scenarios consider potential actions he might take before the election. Efforts to manipulate communications after an election present unique threats. In the event of Trump's loss, all of the above techniques could be employed to boost claims of electoral improprieties, damaging public confidence, pressuring key decision makers such as boards of election or judges, or stoking offline unrest. Imagine the chaos online that would follow if enough election boards refused to certify an election. And of course, that's their plan with Republican boards, leading to court challenges and recounts disrupted by violent protest. It has happened before, after all. Now, imagine not only a total failure to put out the fire, but a decision at the top of X to fan the flames. Given Musk's brazen willingness to spread false claims and even manipulated media, many worry about what he will be willing to do or say if Trump loses the election and tries extra legal means to overturn the results. There is a very real risk that Musk would aid Trump's efforts to subvert the election outcome. Potential whistleblowers inside of Musk's X may be the best defense, especially if they act in real time against such anti-democratic behavior. Taking action as a whistleblower carries considerable risks, but even if there are few legal consequences for Musk or X, public controversy might alter their behavior in important ways or encourage policymakers to pursue reforms. Those are 2 maybes anyway. I don't know if they stand up to this action. Congress, it says here, should act, but barring that, whistleblowers may be the best hope. That's a new section. If legislators worry that the political influence of billionaires, if they worry about it, as both sides of the aisle now seem to, the above scenarios offer a guide to curtailing it. In the era of Citizens United and a gridlocked, anemic FEC, campaign finance reform is an obvious place to start. That reform should include penalties capable of meaningfully deterring deep-pocketed actors like Musk from unlawful behavior. Clearer laws governing incitement to violence, voter intimidation, and interference in election proceedings would be a meaningful step. Congress also has yet to weigh in on the ongoing legal fights about Section 230, content moderation, and the editorial discretion of social media companies, preferring to let courts sort it out. Another area where Congress could act, but has not, is transparency legislation, which would require platforms to share data with researchers about their content recommendation and advertising systems. Such legislation would empower watchdogs in both civil society and government. State legislatures are to be commended for acting on synthetic media in political campaign contexts, but that is not a substitute for federal regulation. State bills also pose a variety of First Amendment questions about satire and other protected speech that Congress should consider more carefully. In the meantime, concerned parties within X should not hold their breath waiting for legislative action. If X engages in clandestine actions to the benefit of a political candidate, whistleblowers may be the best hope for accountability. Well, we'll see whether any of them can withstand the pressures usually brought to bear against whistleblowers. And man, well, that's a pretty scary scenario, and there's a lot to it. I will give you a taste for what is in the Atlantic article that was previously mentioned, what taste they will show us before the firewall kicks in, just to give you an idea of it, whether or not it's something that you, if you are a subscriber, might want to read, or if you're not a subscriber, it might motivate you to subscribe. I don't know. I'm running out of ways to explain how bad this is. That's Charlie Warzel, Warzel. What's happening in America today is something darker than a misinformation crisis. Let's see if we can get a hint at what it is. The truth is, he begins, it's getting harder to describe the extent to which a meaningful percentage of Americans have disassociated from reality. As Hurricane Milton churned across the Gulf of Mexico last night, I saw an onslaught of outright conspiracy theorizing. This was published yesterday, so Tuesday night as it was approaching. I saw an onslaught of Wednesday night, outright conspiracy theorizing and utter nonsense, racking up millions of views across the internet. This has less to do with Musk than disinformation in general. The posts would be laughable if they weren't taken in by many people as gospel. Among them, InfoWars' Alex Jones, who claimed that Hurricanes Milton and Helene were weather weapons unleashed on the East Coast by the U.S. government. Of course, sure, why not? And truth seeker accounts on X that posted photos of condensation trails in the sky to basically allege that the government was, quote, spraying Florida ahead of Hurricane Milton, unquote, in order to ensure maximum rainfall, quote, just like they did over Asheville. Okay, you get this idea. As Milton made landfall, causing a series of tornadoes, a verified account on X reposted a TikTok video of a massive funnel cloud with the caption, quote, what is happening to Florida? It's having a tornado. That's what's happening. The clip, which was eventually removed, but had been viewed 662,000 times as of yesterday evening, turned out to be from a video of a CGI tornado that was originally published months ago. Scrolling through these platforms, watching them fill with false information, harebrained theories, and doctored images, all while panicked residents boarded up their houses, struggled to evacuate, and prayed that their worldly possessions wouldn't be obliterated overnight, offered a portrait of American discourse almost too bleak to reckon with head on. Wow. Well, scary, but that's where the paywall kicks in. But it's also a good time to remind everybody, this has been around a while, and it's not good, but it hasn't necessarily been catastrophic, but it hasn't been matched with such widespread mainstream acceptance by a political party, let alone a presidential candidate, now backed by a multi-billionaire with his own social media platform. But, I recall seeing, faked pictures of stuff from, Hurricane Sandy. Oh, here's a picture of a shark swimming through the streets of New Jersey. Okay, that didn't happen either, but widely popular, but didn't require coordinated efforts to make it popular. It was a bizarro image and people wanted to share it. And then people shared it saying, look at this fake, but it still got shared nonetheless. So what if it was, something people were intentionally sharing and coordinating the sharing of and vouching for the validity of? I suppose that would be a bit more dangerous. All right. So, next break coming up here. But still lots more to go over, and probably would be good to use the 2 minutes to try to figure out where to go next with all of this. I got a couple of possible directions, but maybe we scroll a little further back down and talk a little bit about where all these crazy manipulated images are coming from and what might be driving it. I have a couple of pieces from, I think, 404 Media from, probably going on about a month ago that I've meant to share this whole time. It's Good Friday material, not Good Friday, but you get the idea. It's good for usage in these long stretches without Joan or Greg on with us, where we're just wondering how are we going to fill those 2 hours, and then finding that time runs out a lot faster than you think with these things. All right. So as I mentioned, we'll sort through them and be back with you in 2 minutes to give you the answer for how we decided to proceed at this point. Plus there's a couple of other small bore stories that I really have to get on the record for one of these weekends anyway. All right. We'll be back after this with the rundown on, I guess we'll make it thematic and try and stick to it. Now deliver on the promise of those 404 Media pieces, if we can bring them up. I think we can if we read them on Pocket. Be right back. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Before we begin trying to uncover more about AI spam and where it comes from, I thought we would, I wish we had the resources to do a Alex Jones style in-depth forensic analysis of all of this audio that's being provided to us. But now both Scott and Rosalind McGregor have sent me this, so it now demands some attention. A clip isolated by Asin, the senior digital editor for MidasTouch.com. I'm no great love for Midas Touch and the way they do things, but occasionally, you're handed a winner. And Asin does a lot of good work isolating some of the clips that we need to see. Here's one we don't. We don't need to see it at all. You won't see it because this is a radio program, but we need to hear it. And I think you'll find a digital match in the sound patterns here. This, again, both Scott and Rosalind sent me this. Asin posted, comes from Twitter. I'm seeing posts alleging, Asin says, that Trump suffered from an involuntary gas/fecal discharge during this portion of his remarks at the Detroit Economic Club. And it's always trouble, and there's always going to be some, diarrhea, verbal or otherwise, when Trump speaks to an economic club. But most people put the remarks at the Detroit Economic Club in the news because he spent the time, do you remember that when he spoke to the New York Economic Club, he trashed the whole notion of the idea of it being an economic club. I mean, he didn't say, you suck because I hate economics. But he went to an economic club and said, I'm for imposing huge, gigantic tariffs on everything imported into this country, which, speaking to economists, is going to make them wonder why the hell they're doing anything. Why am I here? Why did I get out of bed this morning? Huge tariffs, that's not what economists want to hear about. They they generally will oppose such things. And I wondered, why would you do such a thing at an economic club? Well, it's not always to the economic club part that Trump is disparaging. This time he went to the Detroit Economic Club and took on the Detroit part and telling everybody that if Kamala Harris is elected, she's going to turn the whole country into Detroit. Well, he's in Detroit. Your place is a hellhole. I hate it. It's disgusting. By the way, give me your votes. Now, it's entirely likely that the composition of the Detroit Economic Club lives well outside of Detroit in some of the posh suburbs, and they too hate Detroit, but it is a little bit weird and ironic. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about here. But we'll have to maybe we'll give you the Wilhelm scream primer on this thing. You know how I have always argued that once you hear the Wilhelm scream, you can pick it out anywhere, even faintly. Well, if you've picked out the right part of one of my favorite clips from the Brad Raffensperger phone call of January 3rd, 2021, you'll hear it, of course, in this bit of Trump. But he does his best to talk over it and make sure that he doesn't flinch so that nobody says, did I just hear what I thought I heard? And if, his body language tells you yes, then you go, oh my God, I can't believe it happened. You remember this one.
We found a way in other states later, excuse me.
Right, we found, as he's saying, and he's just speaking right over it, though he gives it away with the excuse me.
We found a way in other states later,
right there.
Excuse me.
Right, okay. Okay, sure. So anyway, guess what? It happens in the Detroit Economic Club clip 2 here. Do I need to boost the volume on this thing so that you can hear it? You know what you're listening for, but I don't know, why not? I'll double I'll turn on the overdrive here and see what that does.
From commerce to labor to FEMA.
There it is.
From commerce to labor to FEMA.
Okay, that just might be a stomach growl. You never know. But it's important news because it's now being circulated by ASIN on Twitter. And so now, what can I tell you? Misinformation will take hold and everybody will be talking about how Trump farted during the Detroit Economic Club call or speech, even though we've been doing the same with the Brad Raffensperger call. But look, Trump fart funny. And so we have a responsibility to bring that news to you. All right. Now, more seriously, I think, the news you've probably seen a lot of these things. And during the hurricanes in particular, as backup, purportedly, for their claims about either the lack of FEMA response or perhaps the inherent superiority of private response, people have been coming up with all sorts of very strange AI generations that are supposed to, somehow more ably convey the horror of it all. Not fake pictures of destruction so much. It's weird. I've been seeing them used to make, supposed to be impossibly cute kids crying and clinging to their puppies and being saved. Sometimes, it's alleged that they're being saved by, I don't know who. They're trying to say that the Proud Boys went down there and saved her or something, or I don't know. At any rate, there's this very weird usage of AI pictures, even though there's plenty of pictures out there of things that will tug at the heartstrings just as well. But that's the way it's been used in the last couple of days in the hurricane scenarios. Although they've also done, I can't tell whether, I imagine that they started out as tongue-in-cheek send-ups of all of this, but I think they ended up being shared by idiots who, I don't know whether they really see what's going on or stop to think about what's going on or what. But there are now pictures of dogs doing the saving, and not like carrying an infant in their teeth or something like they might with a puppy, but dogs walking on their hind legs, carrying in their forelegs, a child draped across their legs, like walking up like a human wading through the waters. Like, why are you sharing this? You must know that this isn't happening, right? But apparently, I don't know. Apparently there are people who think that. Anyway, it turns out there's been some examination of this phenomenon of AI. And by the way, I can't believe people are using up our resources and generating that much carbon usage and water usage. Give me an even more emotionally appealing photo of hurricane devastation, because the real stuff isn't good enough. So 404 Media had been taking a look at this stuff, and I guess which one's first? These are older articles, and I thought that they would make great reading for a Friday, and it is one now. So let's see. Two pieces. One, both from 404 Media, where Facebook's AI slop comes from. And Facebook's AI spam isn't the dead internet, it's the zombie internet. What do these two things mean? And in what order were they presented? Let's see. First, Facebook's AI spam isn't the dead internet. Jason Koebler, Koebler, was a May 2nd article. And the where the slop comes from, also I think Jason Koebler, that's an August 6th article. So I guess we'll start with the earlier one about Facebook's AI spam isn't the dead internet, it's the zombie internet. Remember, this goes all the way back to May of this year, so it won't have the current hurricane context. But over the last few months, many have proposed that the AI spam taking over Facebook is a great example of the dead internet theory, which posits that large portions of the internet are made up of bots talking to bots, filtered through the lens of recommendation and engagement algorithms. Facebook is undeniably cooked, a decaying, depressing hall of horrors full of viral AI-generated content that seemingly gets worse every day. And there are some great visual examples of that offered up. In fact, the piece is illustrated with a picture that is, I mean, like taking it to the most, you would think, absurd extremes. And yet people circulate, or somebody's circulating this. There must be bots circulating this too. And maybe it's all bots circulating it, and that's part of the problem too. But you see these ridiculous pictures. And by the way, very frequently they're captioned, and now they're captioned tongue-in-cheek sometimes with these things. The line being, why don't pictures like this ever trend? Or something like that, something along those lines. And, you know, in some cases, well, it doesn't trend because they're not real. Some cases because they're dumb and they don't mean anything. This is a picture of what appears to be, I don't even know how to describe this to you, but if I was trying to make up alt text for it, it would be, let's see. I mean, I guess they're trying to merge American patriotism, you know, middle American values, support for the troops, and religion all in one. And it is a picture, you know, AI generated of, I don't know what this is taking place in a hovel of some kind, but they have hung an American flag from the wall of this hovel as a backdrop to what appears to be Jesus in a wheelchair celebrating his birthday with what might supposed to be one of those Uncle Sam Americana top hats on, but is actually something in between a Santa hat, because Jesus maybe, and the Uncle Sam top hat, sitting in a wheelchair in those white robes, with a birthday cake with lit candles on it on his lap. Now there's another birthday cake with even more candles on it, sitting on an end table to his right, I guess, along with what might be, you know how AI is. This is either a beverage cup that's next to it, but it's not really, because it looks more like a piece of cake with more candles in it, but the candles are burned down to nubs, but still lit, and it's in the shape of either a wedge of cake or a cup, you know, just like everybody has 19 fingers for some reason, whatever. But Jesus is in a wheelchair because he's been wounded in the legs. One, a exposed, bandaged leg peeks out from under his robes, and also peeking out from under his robes is one artificial leg with a maybe sort of combat style boot attached to it. A soldier's helmet rests on the garbage strewn floor, next to his left foot. And I don't really know why Jesus is in such a dirty place, but he is. He is accompanied, though, by another Jesus, so standing to his right. This Jesus with, again, white robes, but with a red additional sash draped around him, holding what appears to be, I don't know what, either a dog or possibly a baby Jesus. It's a dog sort of shaped body with a maybe babyish head on it, as though it was adapted from Virgin Mary depictions, for whom it would make sense for the body there to be holding an infant. But here's maybe 3 Jesuses in this picture. He's also wearing something like the crown of thorns, overlooking the previous Jesus, staring off into the distance while he holds the birthday cake. They are both accompanied. To the right of the second Jesus, holding the third baby Jesus, is what appears to be possibly a U.S. soldier in battle gear and sunglasses, sitting and observing the birthday celebrations with maybe an AI rendering of a gun in his arms. And golly, what could all of this be about? Why does anybody waste time generating such a picture? This is what we're dealing with here. So, as we were reading, over the last few months, the new theory, the dead internet theory, posits that large portions of the internet are made up of bots talking to bots, filtered through the lens of recommendation and engagement algorithms. And what else could explain somebody saying, why don't pictures like this trend anymore? Well, one, because they're stupid and they don't mean anything. And yet, here it is trending under the headline of why don't these things trend? Only explicable, really, by bots retweeting bots and recommending themselves. But, our writer says, I do not think Facebook is the dead internet. Instead, I think it is something worse. Facebook is the zombie internet, where a mix of bots, humans, and accounts that were once humans but aren't anymore mixed together to form a disastrous website where there is little social connection at all. By the way, in the background of all of this, a story that I saw and didn't park to share, but now comes to mind, is that Elon Musk, I guess, is now in a desperate bid to maintain levels of engagement, I guess, on Twitter, is offering to pay verified accounts to engage with other verified accounts on Twitter. And I'm not sure, why or where or what, but I guess if you have billions and billions of dollars that you can waste, you might as well do that. And that will encourage people to produce content that, fits his engagement algorithm and something, and he can afford to do it. Normally, a company would seek any alternative to paying people to do stuff like this, but I guess he can afford it. I haven't read the articles about it, but I suppose that's his way of hoping to avoid becoming the zombie internet the way Facebook did. All right, again, our author now continues, I have spent more time than anyone I know endlessly scrolling through AI spam on Facebook. I have watched the evolution of Facebook's AI spam go from slightly uncanny modifications of real images to the completely bizarre and obviously fake. Like, what else would you say about the 3 Jesuses having their birthday with a soldier? I have done this from my own Facebook account, which I have had since 2005, as well as from 2 burner accounts that I created specifically to track how AI-generated content is recommended on the platform and to see whether Facebook would put AI-generated images into my feed organically. I now use Facebook exclusively to see what kinds of bizarre AI content is going viral and to attempt to figure out who is making it, why they're making it, and who is interacting with it. It's really quite remarkable. Oh, and as it turns out here, is that the end of what I'm able to preview even through Pocket. But you should see the pictures that are used to illustrate all of this. It's, again, really remarkable. And maybe I might have to see about becoming a free member to see the rest of this stuff. I'm just sort of curious what their sign up. I'll see, as I wasn't intending to do this live and on the air. But let's see. Well, what happens if I go ahead and do this? Well, this is going to sign me up for all sorts of nightmarish spam, I am sure. But I'm very interested in seeing what else is being said about this. But yeah, shoot, I should have done this beforehand. But I was pretty sure that we got the that I had available the content from these pieces through Pocket, but I guess not. And yeah, disastrously enough, even trying to sign up for their free version doesn't appear to be working. Maybe we won't get this note that we're supposed to click on in order to activate the account anytime soon. So that might be the end of it. But you, which is too bad. I'm curious what they have to say about where the slop comes from. And that's the later of the two articles. This one, and I mean, boy, you should see the visuals used to illustrate this one. It's even more remarkable. And the bodies and figures that it generates are so bizarre you can't imagine any human actually believing that this is true. But let me read you just a little bit of what we got out of this one. Again, Jason Kobler writing in 404 Media. Gayan Abhishek, that's my best guess at the last name being Abhishek, is standing in front of a giant touchscreen like Jim Cramer on Mad Money or an ESPN talking head analyzing a football play. He's flicking through a Facebook feed of viral AI-generated images, and they don't even look remotely human. Anyway, the post you see is now of a poor man that is being used to generate revenue. He says in this video, I guess, in Hindi, pointing with his pen to an image of a skeletal elderly man hunched over being eaten by hundreds of bugs. The Indian audience is very emotional, he says, and after seeing photos like this, they like, comment, and share them. So you too should create a page like this, upload photos, and make money through performance bonus. This is basically just somebody saying, you know, although these photos are ridiculous, or they're not photos, these AI-generated images are ridiculous and some of them exploitative, and in some cases, as I said, you know, the figures in them don't actually look human. This one looks like an emaciated, dying human, unfortunately, but others of them just don't really, you know, they look like aliens, enormous feet, gigantic legs that's, you know, make the person appear to be like 11, 12 feet tall somehow. I don't know what's going on. But clearly, this guy doesn't give a damn about what the pictures depict or are supposed to depict. He's just telling you, well, here's how you can make money on the internet. If you want to make money, you should be using images like this because there's a huge audience of people that, whether they believe them or not, will engage with them. And to the extent that you can be, you know, generate revenue by generating content with which people engage, you should be doing this. This is how you should be spending your time. And get those performance bonuses. Is there any more that it can share here? He scrolls through the page titled Anita Kumari. That's the name, I guess, of the account that's attached to it, which has 112,000 followers and almost exclusively posts images of emaciated AI-generated people, natural disasters, and starving children. Like, what would be attractive about that? Why? I'm curious why people engage with it. And I think the allegation of these articles is people aren't engaging with it. There are bots that are designed, of course, to look like people that are, quote unquote, engaging with it just automatically. And that you can just get your bots to interact with bots, and you do it over and over again, and at such scale that you now qualify for some sort of payment from Facebook or performance bonus, even though nobody's looking at your stuff. And if they did, they would immediately recognize it as AI garbage. But it doesn't matter for the purposes of the algorithm. So, okay. Imagine posting exclusively images of emaciated AI-generated people, natural disasters, and starving children. He pauses at another image of a man being eaten by bugs, They are getting so many likes, he says. They got 700 likes within 2 to 4 hours. They must have earned $100 from just this one photo. From where? From who? Who pays? Facebook now pays you, he says, $100 for 1,000 likes. You must be wondering where you can get these images from. Don't worry, I'll show you how to create images with the help of AI. Folks, we are murdering ourselves here. Every one of these photos burns up a lake. And what are they doing? They're being posted for other bots to like, so that bots give other bots the likes they need, I guess, in order to make money as engagement content factories on Facebook. So I guess, we were positing with Twitter's payment from payment from the company to verified users, blue check users to engage with one another. I guess that he thinks he's avoiding the pitfalls of the zombie internet by paying actual people to do it. But they'll pretty soon be using the bots to do the same thing. I don't really know how they're going to separate themselves from this, but I guess that means that Facebook and Meta has also been burning money this way, paying people, or at least allegedly. I don't even know whether it's actually happening. I don't know anybody that's making this money or why they're doing it, but I guess if it's possible, millions of people have no scruples about it. Why not? Go ahead and do it. Now, so this guy is going to show you how to create images with the help of AI. And apparently he's going to tell you that pictures of dying humans is what people are looking for. He taps over to a Facebook page called Dream Home, which has 113,000 followers. And that's not even that many, considering how many people are followers out there of the big accounts. 113,000 followers, and consisted of AI-generated homes that look like roosters, giraffes, horses, and hummingbirds, but also like poor black children and wood carvings. A house that looks like a poor black child. I don't even know what that means. And I'm trying to take a look to see whether any of these pictures are visible in the preview, but I don't think that they are, unless some of these things I can't tell you make them big enough. But here, I don't know what to tell you about some of these. When I say that they're not remotely human looking, like the ones that look like starving people are human looking, but others are of starving people with enormous legs and helicopter rotor blades growing out of their heads. What do you make of such a thing? And why would there be 113,000 people in the entire world, even, who would be willing to follow such an account? And bots is the only answer. So this one is Dream Home, and they make houses shaped like all of these crazy things. The most amazing thing is that all the traffic is from abroad, mainly the U.S., he says. And this guy's in India. As you know, with traffic from the USA, your CPM, that is the cost per 1,000 views, and ad revenue metric, will be very high. So even with fewer views, the income you generate will be higher. He points to a giant house that looks like a mushroom. People find things like this very attractive. The more unique the thing you show the audience, the more engagement, which I guess is what is supposed to get you to, well, what about if I put a helicopter growing out of somebody's head and they're starving to death? What about it? I don't know. Not certain what to think about it. I couldn't tell you why anybody would engage with any of that. And I'm dying to know, but so far, 404 Media is unwilling to tell me. And what is 404 Media? An independent website whose work is written, reported, and owned by human journalists, and whose intended audience is real people, not AI scrapers, bots, or a search algorithm. So I'd love to sign up to support your work, but so far they have not offered me the link that I was looking for. It's too bad. If any of you are subscribers to 404 Media and can share these stories with me, I'd be very interested to know what, like, the rest of this piece looks like. I actually tried to sign up and subscribe, and when I did it, nothing happened. So, I don't know. Let's see. Check my inbox and click the link to confirm my subscription. I'll try one more time to go ahead and do that, but we're out of time as it happens. So I wish I had done this earlier. I think I had looked at this before, and there was just more visible in the pocket view of this stuff. But clearly we're going to have to dig into this, and so far we're not quite at that point with the manipulated and AI bot-generated content on Twitter, but a much more easy-to-understand threat outlined for us by Justin Hendricks about what we might expect in the coming months leading up to the election and then even afterwards. Something to think about and, keep us preoccupied, I guess, as we roll into the closing moments of the campaign. All right. There were plenty of other things, and I had hoped to bring you more of that, but I wanted to at least put that on your radar screen. Those of you who are still involved on Facebook, I don't know how obvious all of this is to you. That's a question for you. You can send your answers our way. I have to turn down the volume on this thing. I forgot that we had it boosted to try to get to the Trump content from before. There we go. A little easier to get along with. All right, got to wrap up for the weekend and send you off to Justice Putnam's West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy coming up next. And we'll return on Monday. Those of you who are going to be joining the Jewish community on Yom Kippur for tomorrow. Hope your fast goes easy, as many of you as that applies to. And it's a good thing that's happening over the weekend this year. Won't take us off the air, and we should be back on Monday. So in the meantime, contemplate all of what we learned from Justin Hendricks, what might be happening with Facebook. His was focusing on Twitter. Could be happening on Facebook as well, because there's another billionaire there who thinks he should be president. It's a little bit worrisome how many of them think they should be president, and the one we've gotten so far has been no great shakes either. So let's see what's up for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Here's our preview. The new Supreme Court scandal. There's a new one, yay, involving Trump and Brett Kavanaugh. The cover-up of that faux investigation, of course, is surging into the spotlight. And so that's why it's being buried again. Let's get the details on that from Justice Putnam next.
From
right here on
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Some mention of the FCC chairwoman expressing her worries about Trump's calls for CBS to lose its broadcasting rights over its Harris interview. A serious threat against free speech and should not be ignored. And of course, more about Trump visiting Detroit and polluting the air there just a little bit further. Stay tuned for all that and more next.